This is going to be the last session, and I promise it's going to be brief. It's hard for me to do, as you probably noticed. But I think it's important to make a few points about the dynamic of group development. Here we talked a little bit about getting to know each other through the Johari window, giving and receiving feedback so that we can work better in a communal type of environment. And we focused on the reality of conflict management, which is something that we see all the time. And it's kind of hard not to see, because where there are two people, there will always be a difference of opinion. And we talked a little bit about the pinch process, which is the way conflict, the process by which we address conflict. We also talked about different conflict management styles. Now, all this comes together in the context of group development. And groups will not grow if we don't address appropriate communication. Groups will not grow if we don't address conflict appropriately. Group will not grow if we don't get to know each other well enough, that we know and we're able and willing to give each other positive, helpful, constructive feedback. Now, all that we've talked about needs to be addressed in an organization life, whether that organization be a movement within the parish itself, the parish council, the finance commission, whatever organization, even within the diocesan, as we get together as people who talk about the needs for the diocese, we need to participate. We need to know that we add value. We need to feel comfortable. And usually we won't be invited if we haven't shown that perception. So I'm going to talk about maybe the first process is Jay Galbraith, which is a significant organization group development professional, came up with this process, okay? When I'm invited to participate in a particular group, or when I want to participate in a particular group, I want to participate in a mission, when I join an organization, when I get hired, when I want to serve in a particular ministry, the first question that I ask myself is, who am I? Who am I to belong there? Why do I want to be there? Or even, why am I here? I want to ask myself, do I have any interest in what we're doing here? And sometimes I know I have joined groups where I really don't have a lot of interest and I really don't contribute. So I rather go to a group that I will contribute, that I have the capacity, the interest, etc. So what do I get from participating in this particular group? And yes, I mean, I got to get some benefit. I got to really get some enjoyment of serving. And if I'm able to answer that question, then I go to the next question. Who are you? And I can ask that question in a couple of different ways. Who are you as a group, as an organization, as a movement, whatever? And why are you here? What do you expect to get out of this work? How can we work this work together? Do you have any interest in what you're doing? What do you personally get out of this as a member of the group? Or what does the church or the company or whatever get out of this particular group? If I'm unable to answer that question, then I go back to the original question, which is, who am I? And you'll see in the bottom box here, I don't think I belong here. It's not my cup of tea. It's not my interest. I have a passion about it, but I don't have the skills to add value. So that's the next thing. If I'm able to answer the who am I, along with the who are you, then I go address the third level, which is the third circle. what do we need to do? And I guess the question is, what things need to be done? What is our process? How important it is to us? And I might be very interested in the outcome, but as I understand what the process is, as I understand how we're going to work together, and I don't feel fulfilled, or I don't feel any interest in that type of cultural environment, well, I'll go get someplace else. So if that isn't answered, we have very different interests. We're incompatible skills. I don't think we could be friends. And that's more in organization life than in Christian life. But sometimes that's a reality. We can have a very good, high, very cordial relationship, and I can do whatever heaven wants me to do for you. But I don't really get along with you. That's something I have to work at. But that's a reality. Until I can work with you, then I will. So if I can't answer that question, I go back to who are you? And if I can't answer that question, I go back to who am I? And the important thing is I am looking for a group where I can contribute, where I can participate, where I can actually be fulfilled, where I can actually have fun in serving. And then we go to the next level. If I do answer the question, what can we do? What do we need to do? Then we talk about how can we work together? And what is our level of commitment? What is our individual strength and limitations? It's not important. It is very important for us. I remember, and I've said this a couple of times in different scenarios, but I was playing mandolin in a music ministry, and we all love music. And all of a sudden, a gentleman came in with a flute, and everybody was excited about having a flute in the music ministry. Quite often, I very seldom have seen a flute in a Hispanic music ministry. The guy had bought the flute to learn how to play, didn't know how to play, and the first couple of times that we rehearsed, he didn't play well. And we did not, nobody told him he could come to play in mass, but he did show up with the flute, and he was throwing everybody off. And nobody knew how to tell him that. There was somebody who actually said, if he doesn't leave, I'm going to quit. Well, let's talk with him. And be honest, everybody was a wimp. Nobody dared. So somebody asked the deacon, thank God it wasn't me, and the deacon talked with him, and he kept coming to church. He came, but he didn't bring his flute, and everybody was happy. So it wasn't a good match. He had the flute, he had the interest, he had the passion, he didn't have the skills. It is important for him, and I'm praying that right now he's playing flute in a music ministry somewhere. But he couldn't do it with us because he was not ready for it at that time. It's that if that's not resolved, then I'm not interested. There's no bad feelings. I'll just go look for a place where I can serve. And that's the bottom line. If I do answer that question in a positive tone, then we will start working together. We will grow in a good and working relationship, and we will both grow, and everybody in the team will grow. So each question needs to be resolved before you move forward to the next level. If the issues are not resolved at one particular stage, then we go back to the next level. And both parties, or the group and the individual, all agree to part. And that's okay. Sometimes that works. And you're better off not participating in a group that you won't feel fulfilled, that you can't add value to. You're better off going to a group that you can, and you will grow. And the group will grow thanks to your contribution and the contribution of all of those who surround you in that particular group. That's the reality. we're not all fit for every group. Now, the other part is, let's look at the dynamic of the particular group. Here we were looking at the dynamic of the individual in the group. But let's suppose you want to start a new parish committee or parish pastoral council, or a new governance committee is established for a particular organization within the church. When these people come together, the first thing that starts happening is you're starting to form, and you get to meet each other. In this stage, most team members are positive, they're excited, they're polite. Some of them are a little anxious as they haven't fully understood what the work of the team will be or what they will do. Others are simply excited about the fact that there's a nice task that I would like to address ahead of it. So the people just come together. They're forming. And everybody has gone through that individual process. Who am I? Who are you? What do we do? How do we work together? Now we're formed. Then we start working. And do not be surprised or even frustrated at the next stage. It's natural. After forming, you go through a process of storming. The next team moves into the storming phase, where people start to push against the boundaries and establish in the forming stage. They push against the boundaries that were established in the forming stage. And this is a stage where many teams fall apart. So basically, when you start teamwork in a new group, you will go through the phase of storming. As a result of the storming, you're seeing that there are different skills, different approaches, different backgrounds, different ways of addressing the realities and the issues that you face on a daily basis as a team to deal with the task at hand. And you start setting norms. You start saying, okay, we're going to work it this way. And you start doing a little bit of negotiation. The storming is a natural stage. And sometimes, because the team can't address the issues at hand, they break apart and they stop working together and they move. Sometimes even resentment. And there we go through the pinch theory that we talked about earlier. But as a result of the storming, we start setting norms. Gradually, the team moves into that norming stage. This is when the people start to resolve their differences, appreciate the colleagues' strengths, and respect the authority as a leader of every individual in the group, because everybody has a leadership role. Yes, there is an assigned leader. Let's call it the president or the chairman or whatever. But everybody is a leader in their area of expertise. So yes, it's a shared leadership, and that's a norm that I'm suggesting. Okay, so we start norming. How are we going to work together? And we go back to that process that we talked about earlier. Who am I? Who are you? What do we have to do? And then we go into how are we going to work together? That's what norming is all about. So we have to, if we don't deal with the norming process, if we don't address how we're going to work, it's going to be very hard to make progress, to move forward, to accomplish any type of goals. Once we establish the norms by which we are going to operate, then we go into the fourth stage, which is performing. The team reaches the performing stage when the hard work leads without friction to the achievement of the team's goals. So now we formed, we stormed, we set norms. And in following the norms, we start performing. And yeah, don't get me wrong. There will be moments where we will revisit the norms. But that is part of the norms. Okay, if something isn't working, how are we going to say it? Let's give each other feedback. Let's get to know each other. Let's see how we can work together, how we can work together better. So then we do the performance. And there's going to be a moment in which this team saw its end of life. Like, for example, a parish council has 2 years, 3 years of life, and leaders are going to be changed. Members are going to be changed. So we have to accept that, and we have to appreciate, and we have to celebrate the successes, and we have to say the goodbyes and appreciate the work that people have done. So that's part of the forming, storming, norming, and performing. It's the reality in which we face our work together. Now, heads up. Every time there's a, call it significant change in the group of people that are working together, the dynamic tends to go through a similar process. Let's say a goal was accomplished. Okay, we did this. Now we have to do a different goal. We're going to do a whole different process for the different goal because it's different. So that might be going on. Maybe a few new members, and this happens in parish councils all the time because members of the parish council come in at certain moments. Some of them are 1 year, some of them are 2 years, some of them are 3 years, depending on the bylaws. So a new member comes in, and you go through the forming, storming, norming, and performing because that new member brings new ideas, new thoughts, new expectations, new thought processes. So we're going through the process all over again. Okay? And it's just natural. Actually, I'm going to just venture to say this happens in families. The couple gets married. They live a year or so. They went through the forming, storming, norming, and performing. Once they were engaged, the lifestyle changes. Now they see each other all the time. They share the same kitchen. They share the same room. They share the same TV. She wants to watch some shows. He wants to watch others. So you go through the storming phase and you set norms and you live together and you perform. All of a sudden she gets pregnant or they adopt. A child comes in, the norms change again. All of a sudden there's a job change. There's a move. So forming, storming, norming, and performing needs to be seen as a natural process for every group, for every organization. And whether it be in church, whether it be in work, whether it be in sports. So basically, the people come in through the red area, forming, learning about each other, storming, challenging each other, norming, working with each other, performing, working as one unit. And that's what we need to look for. That is the ultimate goal. Working as one unit. Making sure that that togetherness doesn't interfere with the accomplishment of the goals. And the reality is that we will occasionally bump into the pinch theory. There will be moments there where stability is interrupted. Okay, so we start right there in the crunch. There's a pinch. There's a disruption of shared expectations. A new member, somebody left, a new leader, a new pastor, many different, but something happened. Maybe somebody didn't follow the rules, or maybe somebody decided to change the rules. Let's talk about this. There's a disruption of shared expectations. So there's a level of ambiguity that starts coming in because we had agreed to this. Then there's some anxiety, some resentment, some blaming, and some guilt that might pop up. So there's a crunch. And in that crunch, we have to decide, what are we going to do? We don't progress and we stay in a stalemate, going back and forth. What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? We have a resentful termination, which is never healthy. We have a premature reconciliation because we realize, okay, it's not a big deal. Everybody agrees. Let's address it. Let's go back to the way we were doing things, or let's adjust the way we were doing things to make them work. And we go back to stability and productivity and confidence. Or we have to go through a reconciliation process, which could cause a little duress. But we need to talk about, we need to address, how do I feel? We need to give each other feedback. We need to learn to work together. We need to go back to the way we were, as the song said. So we gather data, we share the data, we clarify expectations, and we can't do that anymore, we leave, or we go into role clarity commitment. We establish the roles, we agree with the roles, we establish, and it's basically going back to that from moving from storming to norming process, and we go back to a productive and confidence type of environment. When we have the experience, we kind of have a tendency to naturally see things coming. So if we see things coming, then we go through the planned reconciliation. We're going to have a hard time with this. We got to address it. Let's work on it, and let's make it happen. Let's do a reconciliation process. That way we can go back to role clarity, which is a form of storming. Planned reconciliation is the process by which we move from storming to norming. And then we go back to that stability, which allows us to perform. I think that's very important, that we understand that the groups have a natural process by which it operates. I have to be aware and accept that I can add value to that group. If I can't, I go look for another assignment, another organization, and add value to another group, and that's okay. I'm not going to stop loving you. This is not my cup of tea today. You understand that you can add value, that we can work together. That's addressed. We try to understand what the work is, how we're going to do it, and then we establish our roles, our expectations, and our processes, and we start performing. Again, every group will go through the process of forming, storming, norming, and performing until it either goes into termination or the membership changes. All we have to do is pray that whatever we decide to do, we do it for the glory of God. God bless you. I love you all. Have a good evening. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen.